Thank you.
Go for it. Because they're going to do a drill. So the only thing I ask you is, where do you want to go? Because we've actually because if you have to go inside,
Oh, that's true.
okay, well, it's not required that they be doing the same thing. Evacuate the same area. I would also appreciate it because nobody wants that notify
Me?
you. Yes, notify me when are you going to do it because we know you as a part of it. We might have to be in advance.
Right.
So, okay, well, I'll do that. And I said, well,
Yeah, it's good to know.
I asked her, why is it evacuated away? Well, it's hard to go across the That's the reason.
I just would think the more one you want to careful there's something about like the larger distance you have to cover, like the more risky people ditch, they leave, they fall, they get like killed. You know what I mean? Like I don't think
So we kind of discussed all that. They don't want us to go across to the cap shops. Okay? I said, what if
I'd like
Oh, which one is he?
Leaning over and talking to someone.
Oh, I see him, yeah. Okay. You're way over there. Why don't you come and
Why
sit
don't you move over here?
Yeah,
and
sit here.
Just change the side.
Just, yeah,
And that way you can see the signs. We'll just
yeah.
mark this.
Oh, good, you got a, yes. Okay. Good evening, everybody. We have a quorum. Thank you all for coming. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Donna, we have some public comment?
Hello, President Grissom, members of the board. I'm Colleen Lynch and I teach mathematics. I'm here to thank you for keeping us with NIMSIA for healthcare for another year. And I know this is not about me, but I would like to offer a little bit of perspective on what this means to employees by telling you a little bit of my personal story. Many of you had some questions about the nature of the disruption that we feared in potentially looking at Carrier C. And so let me tell you just a little bit about my experience. And I'm just one person, and there are other folks who have similar stories to tell. In the summer of 2011, I was diagnosed with sarcoma. I have a disease which I share with about 15,000 other people in the entire country. I walked up to this table tonight on 2 feet because I had coverage from Presbyterian, because I was able to see an oncologist at UNM who, when I sat down in his office, told me that he didn't think that I needed an amputation. So I didn't have an amputation, but I did have 2 surgeries and radiation treatment, and then quite a bit of treatment to keep my legs still attached to my body. I had access to St. Francis St. Vincent's Wound Clinic, which wouldn't have been available to me under Carrier C, hyperbaric oxygen treatment, lymphedema, physical therapy, and all of those things are what make me a person with 2 functioning feet. I still have some cancer in my body. At the moment, it's not doing very much. That could go on for a long time, but it might not. And when it does come back, or if it does come back into motion, I'd like to have the opportunity to go to a place where there are specialists who treat people like me. You know, if this is proportional, 15,000 people means probably less than 150 people in New Mexico have the condition that I have. So there's a need for healthcare choices for everyone, and people have different needs, and some of us need something bigger than an HMO to continue our lives and to stay solvent. So as a person who's worked here for 22 years, I just want to share that with you. And I really look forward to working together with you through shared governance to come up with healthcare solutions that will work for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Shalimar Krebs, and I also teach in the mathematics department. But more importantly, I started here 12 years ago as a student. And I'd like to share a little bit about that story because I think it says a lot about what I'm here to say to talk about today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm kind of a higher ed junkie. I've been to 9 different colleges across the United States, and I've acquired a variety of different degrees, and quite honestly, the faculty here are the most exceptional I've ever encountered. When I came here 12 years ago, I did so because I just graduated from college and I wanted to take a year off of work to transition from female to male. And I wanted to do that in a place that nobody knew me. So I decided I didn't want to be bored at home. I would come to the community college, take some classes for a year, and then disappear into the wilderness. And only to discover that it was the first time in my life that I was accepted and treated with respect and equity and integrity in my entire life. And I have dedicated my life since then to paying that forward and being a part of that here. So when the idea of the union came along, seems disconnected, but when the idea of the union came along, I was a little skeptical. I have to admit, I really didn't want to do anything that be a part of something that was going to create tension and animosity between people I really admire and respect. And it was important to me that I would be able to be a part of something that I could maintain my own values. And every time I come to a meeting, every time I've been to seen an email, every communication I've been a part of, I've heard my own values echoed back to me through my peers. Those values include integrity, respect, professionalism, good faith, mutual trust and understanding, and the desire to collaborate to create systems that work for everyone. The same values I experienced here as a student 12 years ago. My perspective on the union now is that this is an incredibly exciting time to be a part of SFCC. A group of people have come together to say, we are willing to put in the time and energy it takes to collect opinions and ideas, research best practices, write and present proposals, come to the table and listen to potentially opposing views, and collaborate to solve current and potential problems. This is our opportunity to get things right. And I hope the administration and the board see the opportunity as well and are willing to work with us, to make SFCC better than it's ever been. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isabella Bournet. Hi, I'm Isabella Bournet, and I've been here for 22 years. I've been a faculty for 22 years. I was very disappointed to find out that a couple of my colleagues were being surveilled. Their emails, and in one case, their actual person was being surveilled where they went on campus. I was also very disappointed to find out that the mailroom apparently routinely opens employees' mail looking for cash and checks, and I did not know that. And none of my colleagues knew that either. But now we know. The other thing I wanted to say is that some people want to give the stance that any problems, any ills on the college are because faculty decided to unionize. And what I would like to advise people to do is look at the last few years of Noel Levitt's and look at the comments and the statistics on there to see that we have in fact had a rather problematic working environment for many years. And the union is a valiant effort to try and fix some of those problems. I think despite everything I've said, though, I understand that the union and the administration are beginning to work together to find solutions. And I think that's very positive, and I sincerely hope that that continues. That's it.
Jerry Trujillo.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. President. My name is Jerry Trujillo. It was about 30 years ago that I first stepped foot onto Santa Fe Community College campus. And I stepped foot as a first-time student here. And I would return later on, unbeknownst to me, to become full-time faculty. I teach criminal justice, and I really enjoy it. It's this is the place to be. The healthcare issue came up, and I wanted to share with you an experience I had back in about 2005, 2006 with the city of Santa Fe. City of Santa Fe passed a resolution, the governing body, to create an employee benefits committee because the genetic makeup of the city of Santa Fe is union, non-union management. Same thing here at Santa Fe Community College. We have a brand new union, we have non-union members, and we have management members that are all affected by the healthcare. We're all the people of SFCC, we're all the people in our community. They passed a resolution with the Employee Benefits Committee and assigned members of that committee through all phases of the city of Santa Fe. I was part of the Employee Benefits Committee. We were tasked with gathering information with all the variables involved with healthcare, which you can imagine are tremendous. Our task was to find some solvency and a mutual benefit for both the city and its employees, and also for the taxpayers, for the funding. We were able to come up with a very comprehensive and detailed report, which took about a year. We addressed many issues, co-pays, prescriptions, types of care, services, specialty care, the gamut, if you will. After all was said and done, we came up with a plan that was all-inclusive, and we shopped for services. Unbeknownst to us, there were companies out there that wanted to compete for the service that we were looking for, and at variable prices, of course. We decided and recommended a healthcare plan back in 2006 that the city went forward with. It turned out to be one of the best healthcare plans in the nation. It continues to be one of the best healthcare plans in the nation and in our community. It continues to be solvent. It remains in the black. And before any changes are made, this process is invoked. So I just wanted to share that with you, that I did have some experience with that, and that was a process that seemed to work well for the city of Santa Fe, and I think it may work well for the Santa Fe Community College. And this is a big decision, and we have a lot of people and resources here that can help out and help out with this giant task that's so important to everybody. Not just as 30 years ago, as a student, I didn't think anything about healthcare. Now, I think a lot about healthcare. So I just wanted to share that with you and let you know that there are viable solutions out there that everybody is willing to help with. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bruno?
Members of the board, Randy. First, I want to thank Randy for his longtime service to the college. I really appreciate it. I know my colleagues do, and I can't imagine what a difficult job you've had running this institution. I have a couple things I want to focus on. One is I've been here, I'm Bruno Gagnon, by the way. I teach psychology here, and I've been here 22 years as well. And this actually predates the current administration and predates the current board. And that is, in all the time I've been here, there have been some wonderful things about this institution, plainly. But one thing I have noticed as a faculty member is that there is lacking at this institution, there has for quite some time, any sort of mechanism or concerted effort or even felt desire to value and retain quality faculty. We do a wonderful job of retaining students. We have all these wonderful mechanisms and processes to do that. But we don't really have any processes and mechanisms for retaining quality faculty. I'm not referring to wonderful brunches and socials. Those are all wonderful things. I'm talking about something deeper than that. I'm not just talking about money either. It's a value that I think has been lacking. And when some of us feel ignored or invalidated or disrespected or dictated to, it certainly doesn't help the situation. Now, as a few of my colleagues have said, I have seen some progress in how the administration is now talking with faculty and talking to union representatives, and I think that's wonderful. And I'd like that to continue. I think there is no reason why this new relationship needs to be acrimonious, why it needs to be adversarial. And I would like to urge the board to do their part in creating an atmosphere conducive to a positive, collaborative, new relationship by modeling that and by thinking ahead and also communicating this with the new interim president, whoever that may be. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening, board members and President Grissom. I'm going to go ahead and read what I spent some time preparing because I do better that way. I've worked at the college since September 2009, most recently as full-time faculty teaching social sciences. I'm also a union member. During the past 8 years that I've been here, the college has experienced a multitude of transitions, some in the form of upheaval, others productive and transformative. Now, with the departure of President Grissom, a proposed restructure, a nascent union, and the hire of an interim president, we face change again. Our students, our mission, our campus, and our institution are clearly a priority for all of us here this evening. And whatever transitions we're facing, staff, faculty, and administration alike clearly want these to be well thought out and jointly implemented to ensure a successful and sustainable future for SFCC, our students, and our community. The SFCC AAUP Union is a vital and key participant in co-creating the changes ahead. Authentic shared leadership is often a paradigm shift for institutions that have historically operated hierarchically, and reactivity that causes repercussions for everyone involved is rarely strategic or beneficial. Union members have consistently demonstrated our commitment to promote harmonious and cooperative relationships among administration, faculty, and the larger systems here at SFCC. I'm here tonight to ask the board to work closely with and guide our administration going forward so that their decisions and actions reflect an ongoing process of forging a collaborative, cooperative, and productive alliance with our faculty union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members and President Grissom. I'm Elizabeth Anthony, and I'm an administrative assistant here at the community college. I'm appealing to the board to please accept President Grissom's recommendation to continue our current healthcare plan for another cycle. In the meantime, we look forward to further review together of possible healthcare options. Thank you.
Members of the board, President Grissom, this is my first class that I've taken. I'm a brand new student at SFCC and I'm 60 years old. I did get my master's in public administration and through UNM North, so I'm familiar with the campus. But as a new student, I'm also the president of a student club called Toastmasters that's affiliated with Toastmasters International. And I'd just like to invite members of the board, faculty, staff, and students to visit and practice with us, whether you're a member or not. We want to be a resource for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcy Iannarino? You got it.
Okay. I get so nervous. I should go to Toastmasters. But good evening. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Marcy Iannarino. I am English faculty here at the community college. And I too really love what we do together here. And so I'm also the union president, which I think you guys probably know. But I thought I would make this statement this evening as the union president. I would like to publicly state that as the union president, I am personally committed to building mutual trust and understanding with you all in my role. And I'm willing to work together with you guys to figure out what we think that means with us. Like, what do we want that to look like? I take this role seriously. And I'm amazingly humbled to stand next to my colleagues and also to be here with you tonight. The faculty here are so proud. And their eyes light up when they start talking about their programs. They also light up when they start talking about the students. You guys really inspire us, actually. And that's why we're here, really. And I just hope that we can all kind of wrap our heads around that, because I think that you guys are why we're really all here. And if we can kind of remember that all together, I think that's going to be really good. My colleagues bring integrity, warmth, expertise into their classrooms, and they should hold their heads up high. We care about this place. And for this reason, we look forward to defining our relationship together with you guys. And then once we establish that understanding, committing to it. So we hope for shared solutions and challenges, and we welcome dialogue. And thank you for being here to listen to us. And thank you for the dedication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, President Grissom. I'm John Pantano, and I'm a faculty member here. I've been here since '85, one way or another. I also work at Los Alamos National Labs for full-time for a while, but still part-time. And I want to kind of connect the two. One of my jobs, even though I'm a statistician, one of my jobs was actually to do risk analysis whenever the institution had a major event. Major event being a contract negotiation, a potential RIF, self-select program, and we would take a look at what would be factors. Some of them were numeric, but a lot of them were really human factors. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The senior administration, even in the UC days and now in the Lands days, they had a point of view that said, let's do the least amount of harm, let's get the job done, but let's do the least amount of harm. And I'd like you to take a look at that. We have the new president coming in, we have the union coming in. There's potential, if you go the wrong route, to actually have a very negative effect on the college. There's potential for going a wide range of directions where you can actually have positive input. What we did in our risk analysis, a lot of times we would find out anytime you went to an extreme, you went very anti-union, or if you went very, gave the employees everything they needed and wanted, both of those were negative. It was somewhere in the middle, thinking about the entire situation, and that's what I think some of the people were talking about, taking a look, talking together, and coming up with solutions together. If you stay on that route, I think it'll continue to be good. It'll be better than what it has been in the past. So I'm hoping the board, the new president, will kind of take everybody into account and take a road that involves all points of view. And I think you'll be fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank you all very much. Okay, Mr. President, the employee of the month.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the employee of the month, the winner of the Pass It Forward Award is Ken Maestas, who is from purchasing. I don't believe Ken is here tonight.
No, but
Okay.
he sent a statement. He just said he would like to thank Joanne Romero and the members of the board for taking the time to acknowledge my efforts toward contributing to the continued success of South Bay Community College. Though singled out for recognition, it is only through the support and teamwork of the entire purchasing office that I am able to provide a level of customer service worthy of this stature. I am honored to have received this award and appreciate the opportunity to pass it forward to another well-deserving SFCC colleague.
Great, thank you. And the Wildgram this month goes to Chris Falance from OIT. And Chris is Chris here? I think Chris is actually working the help desk tonight. So, do we have anything? Do we have anything on him?
No.
So I would just like to congratulate both of them for what they've done and for being recognized by their peers. So thank them. Madam Chair, members of the board, just like to highlight a few things from my written report. The Lannell Foundation has awarded $1,000 scholarships to a number of SFCC students, including Bobby Barella, who's in HVAC and plumbing, Anadine Benavides in hospitality and tourism, Catherine Eustace in nursing, Rebecca Lane in biological sciences, Ashley Montoya in nursing, and Carrie Quaid in media arts. And so scholarships are so meaningful to our students, and we want to thank the Lannell Foundation for that. We do have our annual college night next Wednesday, October the 4th, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Fitness Education Center. There will be colleges from all over the country with tables there and prospective college students from various high schools there. Our photography faculty member, Will Wilson, was recently honored with the Governor's Award for Excellence in the Arts earlier this month, and so we would congratulate him. Our fine arts printmaking book arts faculty member, Patricia Pierce. Her works are currently in the Santa Fe Book Arts Group at the New Mexico Capitol Rotunda. I'm going to just skip through. The purchasing office gave us a recent report that shows they've saved us over $1.4 million by negotiating long-term and new contracts with multiple vendors. So we thank them and the various areas of the college that worked with them on that. Today at the work session, we went through the graduation survey that was conducted by the Office of Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, and the results were similar to the ones we saw last year. One of the financial situations and determination are the two. Financial situations are among the major barriers to our students. Financial aid is a great opportunity to overcome that barrier, but the biggest way our students overcome their barriers is through grit and determination and taking advantage of resources. And other than that, I think we can see the things in the written report up there. So if it's okay with you, we can go on to the enrollment report.
Okay.
And you should have a new one on your desk tonight.
Chair Siegel, members of the board, President Grissom, I'm happy to be here to present to you all the enrollment report. I've also given you a copy of the fall-to-fall retention rates. If you have a look at your enrollment report, I just want to call your attention to the Pell eligibility and make sure to clarify that this is the total number of non-high school degree-seeking students. And then if you look at the report, you'll see that we're 2.88% down in FTE and credit hours, and 3.41% down in head count. And I'm pleased to report that our fall-to-fall retention rate is the highest that it has been ever, 64%. And you can see that last year it was 53%, the year before 58%, so you get a picture of the history of that. So 64% is definitely headed in the right direction. That's exciting news. And we've just learned yesterday that our 22% graduation rate is actually 23%. And so that's good news too.
So what do you attribute this 64% to?
I attribute it to a number of different things, and I think Todd can probably speak to this too, but I think it has to do with the wall decals and the student figures that we have sitting around, keeping it in the forefront that folks need to think about what's next in terms of registration and being present and being in school. But I also think it has to do with our work in the advising area and the Welcome and Advising Center, reaching out via cards, mailings, but also via social media as well as telephone calls. And so our advisors have been working to reach out to students and to really say, hey, are you registered? It's time. What do you want to come in and see me? That sort of more, we use words like intrusive or aggressive. I'm not sure those are the best, but more active involvement in reaching out to students and really bringing them in to speak with them and get registered for classes. Todd, do you have anything you want to add?
I'll just, Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, I just want to articulate just briefly how this has been a concerted effort that started with some survey data and then moved into what I think I'm seeing is becoming kind of just setting a tone and ambience around the college that we have a culture, we celebrate a culture of student success. And so, you might see a sticker on the wall and say, well, what is that? Well, what that is it is a way of communicating with the students based on their own feedback, which Randy mentioned has to do with their own advice was to tell students to stick with it, to just hang in there. To find support, use support services. But the overwhelming message from the student was, you got this. Just hang in there. And so I think what you're seeing and why this success is really the result of a concerted effort from many departments, but that starts with an effort to centralize a culture, an attitude of success.
And I would add to the more that we are able to get the word out about all of the support services that we have, I think the work that the faculty do in the classroom to encourage students to register and let them know when registration has opened and is happening, talking to them a bit about, what's next in terms of the sequence of courses that they're in. I also think work that has happened in the Welcome and Advising Center with regard to a second year experience. It's really in its infancy, but reaching out to students who are beginning their second year here at SFCC and trying to help orient them. We have orientation for those who are beginning for the first time here, but we're working on a program to help those who are continuing and moving into that second year. And support services like our students, helping our students and student government and our student ambassadors and all the ways that our students reach out to each other to help them stay here, keep going, and achieve their goals.
Do we have a way of measuring what exactly is working?
I believe that I can. I don't have it with me, but I believe I can get you some data about the calls and the information that advisors are gathering and they're reaching out that they do to students. So I believe I can get you some data on that, certainly. Mm-hmm. And I think we have data on how much usage we have of our various support services, whether it's accessibility or the library or whatever those things are. I believe I can get you that data as well. Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, we can just measure the impressions or analytics that are coming from from some of these efforts that are more on the measurable side. A challenge of I spent, I think, 15 minutes just standing by one of those stand-ups, of the student, just to see how many eyeballs kind of flashed in that direction. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of foot traffic through, so, some things are easier to measure, some things are a little more difficult. But yeah, we also, from our kind of recruitment marketing side, be happy to share some of our, the impressions information. But that's how we measure that stuff.
Well, and I know we've talked about how we would accumulate this data in Banner, or
yes,
that's happening now?
Yes, the student tracking system on Banner is the students are in there, and we're trying now to create programs and projects that allow us to really utilize that. So one example is the marketing department is using a text message system that we're kind of piloting for other areas, but the idea would be you take that information, you get a contact, and you kind of will profile those people. So I met this person at a college fair, and so you kind of put some keywords around that. A week later, a text, hey, thanks for signing up. We'd love to hear from you. And 2 weeks later, maybe we haven't heard from you, doing good. So Margaret mentioned the kind of aggressive or more intrusive style. We think cell phones are the way to make that happen.
Yeah. Questions, Jack?
Madam Chair, and Todd and Margaret. At our last board meeting, one of the board members, we had a report, and I'm referring to page C10 of our packet. We had a report, and I'm just reading from the minutes, regarding the open houses at the college, and that over 650 juniors and seniors had attended. One of the board members asked what the conversion rate on those 650 students was, and the answer was that OPI can run that report and that it would be available for the next board meeting. So what are the results?
I would love it if Marcos were here to answer that question. But I will, I want to be careful when I answer those questions in terms of giving reports and data as kind of the answer, or that we can kind of pull those things out. What I'll do is convey this question to Marcos and see what specific information I can provide. But that is part of a cultural shift that we're hoping to take in our department, which we are undertaking, that involves looking at things like conversion rates. And I do recall that conversation. But I just will add that it takes time for those systems to be put in place. And so I think that a month might have been a lofty goal for that. But I will write that down, and I will confer with OP on how we can give you a more concrete answer for that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add that Marcos is not here this evening because he is at a New Mexico Virtual Academy virtual college fair. And so he explains to me that this is him sitting in front of a computer, giving a presentation via PowerPoint and speaking with students all over the state that go to the New Mexico Virtual Academy. But he did send Todd and I some information, and so I just wanted to try to do this justice, not quite as well as he would, I'm certain, but they are, the Office of Recruitment and Outreach is wrapping up the New Mexico Education Council College Days College Fair Circuit. They have visited over 15 New Mexico high schools, and that includes Los Alamos, Pojoaque, St. Michael, Santa Fe, Moriarty, Rio Rancho, Bernalillo, a very long list. And then they also participated in college and career fairs during the month of September, Pathways to College and Career Day at the New Mexico State Fair, the Pueblo of Jemez College and Career Fair, New Mexico Department of Transportation and Transportation College and Career Fair, as well as the Santa Ana Pueblo Environmental Fair. And participated in Zozobra. I think he mentioned that last month when he was letting you all know he was going to do that. And then the Santa Fe Public Schools Back to School Bash. And he has upcoming events, the one he's at this evening, the boxing event at Buffalo Thunder. College Night is next week on the 4th of October. The Santa Fe Indian School College Fair, more college fairs at Pojoaque, a visit to Laragoite, Academy at Laragoite. He also wanted me to let you all know that the digital marketing and recruitment specialist position has been filled, and the new person will begin on Monday, October 9th. And also that all of the recruitment and outreach ambassadors spots, I think there are 5 of those, have been filled. And so they're being trained and giving tours and presenting information and being ambassadors for the college. So that's exciting as well. So that's my Marcos report. Not as dynamic as he can do it.
Kathy, do you have anything?
Just a quick question to you about, have you been keeping up with, have we been looking at what enrollment rates look like from around the rest of the state and from our peers at community colleges? So we are down in terms of enrollment. Have we seen what our peers, what their enrollments look like?
We are all down in enrollment, as I understand it, to varying degrees, and I'm not able to give you those specific numbers, but I do know that this is consistent across the state. President Grisman can address this.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Member Keith, we had a meeting of the New Mexico Independent Community Colleges last week, and with one exception, we're all down 3 to 5%. One of the smaller schools is actually flat. But the continuation trend, the only real data I've seen, though, has been what's been in the newspaper about New Mexico State and UNM, and they're down much more.
Thank you.
And I think you all know this, just to add this, but we do still have registrations left to happen. We have late starting classes, classes that don't begin until, sometime in the future. We've got 8-week classes that begin mid-semester. So there will be some more registrations as we move forward. The dual credit students are all registered with the exception, maybe, of one class, and that is it. So that's good news, too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Madam Chair, I didn't know if you want to talk about it in here at all, but the graduation survey, we went over that in depth at the work session.
Right. I think we covered it.
I think we're okay. Okay, thank you.
Faculty Senate report. Do we have that?
Chair Siegel, President Grissom, members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity. First, I want to say I'm very proud of my colleagues who came here to testify tonight. It's outside of their regular time that they would be here, and it was a big commitment. A lot of them came out, and I think they spoke passionately, and I think the views I heard represent broad consensus around the campus. I'm sorry that I got here a little late to give my own testimony, because while I get to give a faculty senate report, I have my own opinions that are often very different. I was going to speak a little bit about healthcare and my own experience with healthcare. I think I'll shift over to more of a faculty senate perspective on it, but I think that what we need is that there is probably going to be a need to look at our healthcare and what we're using right now and what might be the best alternatives for the future. But as my experience was at a former employer, a very inclusive process that brings everyone together, talks about what the needs are, what people are willing to pay, what the cost to the college would be, and what the give and take on that would be. We went through a very extensive process when I was working at Whole Foods and came up with what I think is a better plan than what Jerry said they got with the city. But it's an incredible plan, and of course Whole Foods has a pretty healthy group, so they had more opportunities. But I think it was before there was about a 2% enrollment in the healthcare plans, and it went up to 98% after we negotiated a new plan. So I thought that was a really fantastic thing. We appreciate the input that we got into the presidential search, interim presidential search process. We think it can be better. There were a lot of times where we were rushing to try to pull things together and meet with and get input from people outside of our regular meeting times, and that made everything very challenging. But we can do better on the long-term search. It has to be a priority for the board. It is a priority of the Senate, and we look forward to working with you on putting together a very good process and a very good search and coming up with, well, maybe the second best president we've ever had after President Grissom. So, there was a letter to our members. You know, it's a high bar. You know, you can't always improve everything. There was a letter to some of our members suggesting that the AAU UP report on the faculty senate agenda was inappropriate somehow, and I just want to say I believe that represents an intrusion into the business of the Senate and potentially a violation of policy. And so I think that I'm very careful to make sure that no union business is transacted in faculty senate meetings, and if anybody wants to come and watch and see how that works, there is a report. There has been a report. There are members of the union present at the meetings as members of the faculty who have opinions which they're representing at that meeting as faculty, not as members of the union. So I think we have a difficult learning curve here for everyone. We're trying very hard in the Senate to be really clear about what our role in governance is and what the union's role is, and keep them absolutely separate, although the communication between the two bodies is very important. One of our greatest concerns right now is, as we negotiate things, the vast majority of our faculty are not part of the union. And so anytime the Senate is bypassed, we are leaving out the vast majority of the members of the faculty, and many of them have critical interests that are not necessarily represented by the union. So I want to be clear that while we do have collective bargaining in place now, that the Senate still has a vital role to play, and to go around the Senate in any way, shape, or form represents cutting out a great many of our faculty from fair representation on the campus. Related to that, we're concerned about a disturbing trend of the board acquiescing to policy violations. The administration did negotiate a restructure of the academic side of the house, but clearly in our policy, that is something that needs to go through shared governance. Even in the bona fide financial emergency, specific wording about going through governance for a restructure is in the policy. So I'm very concerned when the policies are violated. We spend a lot of time the last 3 years working on honing and improving policies on this campus. It's a very disturbing for us to do all that work and then find that the board does not always insist upon those being followed. We're developing consensus, or rather developing a canvas shell for Faculty Senate right now. I believe that will help us to achieve one of my personal goals for, as the Faculty Senate Chair, to create a really effective way that members of our organization can participate without having to come to the meetings on Friday. Some people have classes, some people are commuting into Santa Fe and don't have classes on Friday. I think this is going to be very effective. We looked at a lot of opportunities, and when the idea for a canvas shell came up, it was something that all our members, almost all our members, have some familiarity with. We can have discussion groups and topics and bring the input that people give outside the meeting into our meeting. So I think we're going to find that is going to be a very effective tool, and I'm hoping that potentially the Student Senate and the Faculty Senate can see how that tool can also be very useful for them. It's come to my attention that there is a narrative spreading on campus that the Faculty Senate failing to send representatives to the executive team is an issue of attitude rather than scheduling. I have to admit that committing to 32 or more hours per semester is a significant increase in workload, and so 2 hours a week is a big barrier. It's a big additional thing. It's very hard for me to get members of our organization who are not compensated to give that big of a commitment. We're working on it. We're going to do our best to get people there, but that's not always easy. I will say that for both Clark and I and for Deborah, we're dealing with an issue where it's a direct conflict with our actual teaching schedules. And so if there was a willingness to change the time where that wasn't a conflict, I would commit to attending the meetings. But at this point, that's just not a possibility. We'll do our very best to get people there. We are trying to keep up with the minutes of the executive team, but the executive team minutes are about a month behind right now, so it's difficult for us to have that kind of meaningful, be able to really keep up on what's going on without talking to people who have been there and asking them to give back reports to us. We'll do our very best and try to make that commitment for the spring semester, but it is absolutely not an issue of attitude. It's an issue of scheduling and time commitments. I did talk to some of the folks on the staff senate, and it was clear that when they go to a staff senate, as staff senate representatives, they're getting work release for that. The faculty get no additional work release to make that additional commitment to go to executive team meetings. If we want to talk about expanding ATA for Faculty Senate, that might be another topic we could discuss in that regard. I want to finish with, we're heading into a bond election. I've worked on many political campaigns in my life. I know that political campaigns, bond issues are never about marketing. You can ask the county, you can ask the city. What it is, it's about one-on-one grassroots connections and people talking to people. I know that our membership is very committed to doing that kind of work to help to get this bond issue passed. But I think it's very critical at this point, going into the bond election, that we close ranks. That any acrimony that exists related to things that have gone on in the past, anything that's going on with challenging negotiations with our union and the difficulty of adjusting to a culture of collective bargaining will be challenging, but I think it's in all of our interests, and certainly those of us in the faculty and the staff who will probably be here long into the future to get this bond passed. So I think we all need to close ranks, work very hard to show a united front, and let everybody know what an amazing place this is and how, actually, frankly, reminding everybody what a fantastic place this is and how important it is to them. I know not only my students and my past students, but their families are always coming to me and telling me how critical this place was, how great the faculty is here. I know that I spent a long time here as a student, and the faculty here impressed me so much. Having gone to a very prestigious four-year institution, I found the faculty at this institution of very high caliber, and I think we all need to work together and show everybody what a great institution this is. Clark, did you have anything you'd like to share?
Sure, a couple of words. Hi, everybody. Just again to kind of back up, I think what Zuby has mentioned, that on a personal level, I'd like to share what I really believe as the great and functional purpose of Faculty Senate itself. As you know, I've spent a number of years working with it, trying to come through difficult times with it and finding like common goals and high ground to obtain to. And in times of challenge, the way they exist currently on the national political scene, I think we owe that to ourselves to continue to try to work together and identify the central educational role, what we try to meet within the college. And I think that's whatever we do. I think that's where we take our first and best cause and ultimately the success for our students and the community. Looking forward to doing that and looking forward to approaching the bond election, hopefully, and a good future ahead. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
So, Madam Chair, a quick question. Zuby, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. First of all, you know, you're talking about campaigns are not marketing, but then saying it's about talking to your friends and neighbors one-on-one and the people you know, which in my opinion is a form of marketing. So, I think we all represent this college and we all have the ability to market and tell people about the great things going on at the college, and are able to do that. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think I agree with you. I just see it in a different way, that we are marketing. We are every day telling people about the great things that are happening at Santa Fe Community College, and we can all do that and be in that together. Secondly, I just wanted to follow up on your comments about breaking policy and basically saying that the board has broken policy, which I think is a pretty serious statement to make, and I want you to know that I take it very seriously. So I'm happy to follow up on that, and I would ask that our attorney, the college's attorneys, review that and that we come back with an answer on that. Okay. Because I don't think that we should throw an accusation out like that and let it stand.
No, I think I would agree, and I think I did send out to members of the board the exact policy, and I did not receive a response as to why anyone thought that that was being followed, but clearly we have not gone through a governance process to try to go through this restructure. And I understand we're in a very new setting right now with the collective bargaining, but the union is very supportive of this being pushed through and having maintaining the integrity of the role of shared governance. In this case, I think it was negotiated with the union and not sent through shared governance. And I know it's just something, it's going to be a learning curve. We have a new situation, and we're going to have to all work very hard to make sure that we work through the difficult learning process of how we can maintain effective shared governance in a collective bargaining environment. And other schools have done it, so I don't think this is undoable, and I have a very high opinion of everybody at this table and everybody at this institution, and I know that we can be successful in this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Staff Senate.
Madam Chair, President Grissom, members of the board. First, I want to reiterate the resolution that you received at your seats in the work session, that the Staff Senate is very much in favor of postponing any major move on health benefits for the better part of a year till we can study it. Second, we appreciate being included in the interim process and hope to continue that sort of inclusion with the presidential search. And thank you very much for including us. We have had couple meetings since I last talked to you. I just wanted to go over a couple of things that we've done. First of all, Yash came and presented to the group about succession planning, and we have engaged with that group to see what we can do about developing a succession planning process here. We have 5 staff members who are participating on the committee for the Employee Professional Development Day, above and beyond what was asked, and I want to commend those folks. Further, the PMAT, which is the employee evaluation process, we've engaged with HR, and we're very appreciative of their willingness to work with us on perhaps doing some improvements to that process. And finally, sorry, I'm reading. We want to thank you for the opportunity to continue to work with you and continue to improve the college. We certainly appreciate that effort.
Questions?
Add one comment. I met, Madam Chair, members of the board met with the officers of Staff Senate, and we almost have finalized the charter for putting together the task force to look at the staff salary matrix. So.
And we hope to be sure that that continues under new leadership of the college.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. So student government.
Good evening, Madam Chair, President Grissom, and members of the board. I do apologize because my last report, I gave it from my seat.
That's okay.
I was extremely nervous.
You can still do that.
Well, from SGA, we do want to thank you for allowing the student government and the student body to provide our input towards the interim president. At the moment, we're actually going on our 7th meeting, excluding the one where we had no electricity and we had to shut down. We've had actually about 25 to 35 representatives attending our SGA meetings. We have had presentations, and we've had our SFCC executive team, and deans of the schools. We've had the Truth Initiative come and present. We had a small presentation today from Toastmasters, our veterans, which was very touching, and also our respiratory club here at SFCC. We have good news. We have 3 new senators. We have a senator for the School of Liberal and Fine Arts. Her name is Claudia Kalish. We have a senator for School of Sciences, Health, Engineering, and Math, Carmen Rodriguez Rosas. And also we have a senator for the School of Trades, Technology, Sustainability, and Professional Studies, Martin Lynch. Those are our 3 new senators. Also, we are planning to go to a SGA conference in LA. This is a great opportunity for us to learn from other colleges and see what other strategies they're using in their community colleges. And this is our first semester, the new team. So this gives us an opportunity to come back even stronger next semester and be very successful for our students. And that is all for now. Thank you.
Questions?
Not for me. Thank you.
How many senators do you have now?
3 senators. We had no senators in the beginning,
okay.
but we do have 3 senators now.
How many can you have?
5.
5, okay. So you're still looking for a couple?
Until the following semester. We've closed
Okay.
for this semester, but for the following semester, we'll look for 2 more senators.
And so how many students are you getting to your meetings?
About 25 to 35 students.
That's good.
We've actually had to up our meals for each meeting because we've had plenty of students coming.
So, Madam Chair and President, would you remind the board who can vote? Because you have senators and you have other opportunities for people to attend and become voting members, correct?
Yes, so our students I apologize. I referred to our students as representatives because that's what they're considered. So our representatives, which are the students, the senators, and the treasurer, historian, and vice president can vote. I cannot vote unless there is a tie. And anybody who is taking one credit can be a representative with the SGA.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much, Naomi. Okay, approval of the consent agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I didn't mention it earlier, but I would like to remove the work session of August 23rd for a brief moment.
Okay. So we can approve everything but that? All right, could I have a motion to approve all on the consent agenda except the work session of August 23rd?
So moved.
For a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now we're to the work session of August 23rd.
Okay.
Do you have a change?
Yes, Madam Chair. On page C3,
Okay. Let's see.
under item 4.1, it says that Hispanic faculty is increased by 23%, so we are more aligned with our students. That would be wonderful, but I'm afraid that may be a little bit over-enthusiastic. If you look at the minutes of the meeting of the regular board meeting that same day, on page C11, you'll see that the report was that we've had a 2% increase in Hispanic faculty. We are, quote, making slow, steady progress with this, which is also good, but perhaps not quite as good as 23%. I don't recall the number being 23%. So my guess is that that's a typo, but stand corrected on that from anybody.
Is that we have 23%?
Actually, I believe it increased from 21 to 23%. So this should either say it increased by 2% or increased to 23%.
Do you have a clarification, Yash?
Madam Chairs, members of the board member Sullivan, that is correct. The 23% is the total current percentage of a number of Hispanic faculty. It used to be around 16 to 18%, and so we made steady progress every year towards it. And so we're happy about making progress as we need to get, we want to try to make it as close to our student body in terms of representation as appropriate.
So, Madam Chair, I'd recommend we change the word by to two.
Two. Yeah. T-O.
Increased to 23%.
Well, Madam Chair,
Or increased by 2%, either one.
I would suggest we make it the same as the wording in the board minutes for the regular meeting, so that it would read increased by 2%.
For a total of 23%.
If you like.
Let's do that.
All right. So I would move approval of the work session minutes for the meeting of August 23rd, 2017, to state that Hispanic faculty increased by 2% to a total of 23%. So we are more aligned with our students.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you. We are on to the selection of an interim president.
So, Madam Chair, earlier today, you've decided to have a special meeting on Tuesday, October the 3rd at 8 o'clock. So I would suggest we just table this motion until that time.
Right. I would like to thank everybody for their input by watching the forums. We had a number of individual emails discussing the two candidates, and of course we had the faculty senate and the staff senate and the student senate providing us with input. So thank you all very much, and we will be making a decision of some type on October 3rd at 8 o'clock.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate the minimum qualifications that we have been seeking, and these were published publicly in the media, as well as out in areas where the potential candidates would see them. But I just want to be sure that the public knows what qualifications we're looking at. And there's just 6 of them. They're fairly straightforward. The first is at least a master's degree from an accredited institution of higher learning with an earned doctorate or other terminal degree preferred. The second one is at least 5 years of senior level administrative experience, preferably at a community college. The third minimum criteria is an ability to work and communicate effectively with an elected governing board and be directed by mutually agreed upon goals. A fourth is outstanding experience in systems management and organizational development in areas such as human resources, budget management, collective bargaining, and construction and facilities. The fifth is knowledge and commitment to the diversity of New Mexico cultures. And the last requirement is commitment and accountability to open communications with students, faculty, and staff. I think those 6 criteria are an excellent base for the deliberations that we've been going through and for what you all have been evaluating yourselves as you have attended these forums, these 2 forums, which the board members have attended as well. And I want to thank you for your participation in those forums, and as the chair said, for your responses and emails, or responses rather to the website. We've all read those responses, and I can say personally that every one of them were well thought out and well presented, for which I congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to move to table the action on a selection of the interim president for SFCC to a special meeting on Tuesday, October 3rd at 8 a.m.?
Yes, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. The healthcare.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I want to go through a few of the background information here that's on this for the public. It's always prudent to look at your healthcare alternatives, what's available to you. It's a very complicated issue. It is a very costly issue, both for the college and for our employees. And so we decided last spring we wanted to at least look and see what opportunities might be out there. As we were looking at doing that, look on our own to see what options would be there. We found out that CNM was doing the same thing, and so we decided to join in with CNM and RFP. And it was a very focused RFP to try to see what other options there might be to NMCIA to provide our health care coverage, but looking at the same coverage that we have from NMCIA to see if there was any savings or opportunity for better coverage through that. We did go through that process. I just want to highlight a few things for everybody's knowledge. Currently there are 390 employees at Santa Fe Community College who are eligible to participate in the healthcare benefits programs. Of those, 277, or about 71%, of the eligible employees do participate. It costs the college and the employee dollars. In FY17, the year ended last June 30th, the college spent $1.9 million on medical. The employees contributed $1.2 million. For dental, the college spent $110,000. The employees that participated contributed $69,000. For vision, the college spent $21,000. The employees spent $13,000. For disability, $17,000 for the college, $11,000 for the employee. And the basic life insurance is fully covered by the college, and that was about $23,000. So total for the year ending June 30th, the college spent roughly $2 million. The employees spent roughly $1.3 million. The college contributes about 61% of the health care costs for those who participate. We did look at, with CNM, what was out there. We both looked at fully insured and self-insured options. All the data that I have seen, the board has seen, and it has been available to the campus community. At this point in time, I think it would be very hard for Santa Fe Community College to go out on its own. CNM has voted to do so. They will be leaving NEMSIA effective January 1st and will be establishing their own plans based upon some of the information they got out of the RFP. There is a risk of staying with NEMSIA. We don't have a say in what the plan is. We don't have any say in what the rates, deductibles, and copays are. We have to, and those who enroll have to go with whatever they determined. And they can also change their vendors and provider networks without our input. That's always been a risk with NEMSIA. If we leave NEMSIA, right now you're supposed to give them 180 days notice. Our contract year is the calendar year, so we would have to notify them by September 30th. If we did leave NEMSIA, some of our current providers might not be in the plans that we might have to be able to put together, and so that could cause disruption for our employees. And right now, the demographics and claims history of Santa Fe Community College makes it challenging to consider going out on our own. We do need to consider what we want to do in the future. It's an ever-changing field, and we don't know what's going to happen there. But I feel at this point in time that we should consider staying with NEMSIA, and that I'm going to ask that you make a slightly different motion than what's in the form, and that is I have a meeting scheduled with NEMSIA tomorrow to see if we might be able to get some better terms from NEMSIA. And so I would ask that we authorize the president to continue coverage with NEMSIA pending the outcome of the meeting tomorrow. In which case it would either be the same or better.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would be glad to make that motion. I did also want to point out that in our presentation, in the presentation on the alternatives, one of the things that the board discussed with our staff and with the CNM representative who was here was what would be what they call the disruption index. Okay, you can think a lot about what that means, but the staff did go back and look at vendor C, which was one that, at least in the spreadsheet, seemed to be the most cost-effective, but still raising a number of questions. And the consultant who is assisting us have come back with the answer that there would be a 17% disruption utilizing vendor C. And I know that the board members have received correspondence from several individuals, and we've heard from some this evening who feel that it would be detrimental to their particular health care plans to have a change at this time. But I did want to add to what the president said, that, which is in his report, by the way, that we did go further in the investigation and look at specifically how many employees or what percentage of the employees who are covered would be potentially have to deal with different providers, and that number was 17%. So I just want to get that out to everyone that we've done our homework, and that's a part of, I think, what is behind the president's recommendation. That said, I would make the motion that we authorize the president to continue with NIMSIA pending the outcome of his meeting tomorrow.
For a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a couple of things to say on this. First of all, I want to thank all faculty and staff who have reached out and shared opinions, which is very important, especially when we're going through this conversation that affects us all on healthcare. So I really appreciate the discussions in both the faculty and Senate, the staff Senate and faculty Senate meetings, and the feedback individually that was sent to the board. Very much appreciate that. So one of the things that I would like to, as we move forward in this process, I hope that we see this as a first step in the discussion of where we're going to go in the future. Because clearly we have a lot of things that we need to reconsider. You know, some of the things that, the reasons why I'm glad we've started this conversation is when I look at the risks of staying with NIMSIA in Randy's report. First of all, vendors and provider networks could change at any time. So even though we're saying to ourselves today, we're not so sure that we like that disruption rate on the Plan C that our consultants went out and looked at and gave us some prices around, tomorrow NIMSIA could make the choice that we're all going to Plan C in order to save benefits, and we would have no say in it whatsoever, which I think is disturbing to all of us to be in that position. The other thing that I'm very concerned about is the rise in premiums. So it's something that I talked to many people who contacted me about. You know, we have seen, we went over this today and asked some specific questions to Daniel about it. So in May, a 4% premium increase across the board. Again, in October, another 6% premium increase across the board for those individuals in the high plan. So that's a 10% premium increase in the last 10 months under our current plan, which is a pretty big increase, substantial increase. We are, as we learn more and talk more about NIMSIA, and Randy will obviously have further conversations with them around this tomorrow, they are not in a good financial position. Because of the state's financial crisis last year, their reserves were swept, and it's our understanding that they were perhaps using those reserves to keep premium costs down. So they have no pool of funds to keep those premium costs down internally. So I guess my fear is that we're going to see this incremental edging up of all of our premiums and what we're paying into the system to get the same amount of health care. Not increased health care, but the same amount of health care. And if we do see those premiums not go up, then what we risk on the other side of that is less coverage. So it's a discussion that I think we really need to have in the next year going forward. I really appreciate everyone's input tonight and in the last couple of weeks around it. And I think there have been some really good ideas put on the table about how we can move forward and get some real input in the college to see what that middle ground is. What are we willing to pay for? What are we willing to give up? In terms of coverage and premiums. So I think that we all as a community have to have that conversation and understand where the middle ground is, or maybe find the plan that does it all for us, and that we can have our same level of coverage and pay the same premiums.
Thanks, Kathy. I also want to thank everybody who emailed me about this issue. I just wanted to remind us that Blue Cross had a 26% difference in disruption rate for providers. And I can certainly understand why many of you wanted to stay with the Presbyterian plan. We can call them ABC, but we all know what they are. And I totally get that. I want to have us look at over the next year many options. I think there are other groups who are doing self-insured that are very large that we potentially could be part of. I think we have to look at the options that would enable us to have some control over what our premium costs are going to be. And being in somebody else's plan is not going to give us that. And as Kathy indicated, NMCA has been spending their cash reserves so that they weren't raising premiums as much as some of the other government entities were. But that with the risk pool sweeps that the legislature did, the whole system of the IBAC system, which is what NMCA is part of, is at risk. And whereas in some states the premiums were going up 5 or 6%, in New Mexico 2 years ago they went up 16%, and it's because those systems, including NMCA, are not doing anything to control costs by managing care better. And so this is the beginning of the conversation, and I think having people's input into the potential solutions to that will be good, but over the next year I think you need to anticipate that that's going to happen, because we really need to find a better solution, and NMCA in the long run is not it. So we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, what do we have next?
Madam Chair, next on the agenda is approval of the Core-Mark International Distribution Agreement. I believe we have Nick Tass and John Apodaca coming up.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom. In front of you, you have management's recommendation to enter into a 5-year contract with Core-Mark International, Inc. For a contract amount of $32,000 per year, potentially, and a total contract amount for the term of the contract of $160,000. Core-Mark provides all the snacks and goodies that are sold in our bookstore, and so it is time that we, go out to bid. And we did that in order to get a hold of a procurement vehicle to be able to make these purchases for resale. And so the background on this procurement is we went out twice for a request for bids on it, and twice came back that there was no respondents to the RFB at the time. That RFB was posted in the Santa Fe New Mexican as well as our website. So it was unfortunate we didn't have any responses. So that allows us to go directly to a vendor in order to negotiate a contract with that vendor. And it just so happens that we approached the current vendor that we've always done business with. And so that's what's in front of you at this point. The bookstore has about $1 million budgeted for purchases for resale for this fiscal year. Again, the cost of the contract is about $32,000. And with that, I can turn it over to John if you have anything to add on that.
Well, we have discussed this in our Finance Committee meeting. Are there any further questions? Yes, Jeff.
Madam Chair, we did talk about this at the Finance meeting, but we didn't have the distribution agreement at that time. So I haven't had time to look at it carefully. One question I had was, has this been reviewed by our legal counsel?
No, this has not been reviewed by our legal counsel.
Well, it would be my suggestion that we do that. It's not a long agreement. It's only like 4 pages. We do have some boilerplate terms that we incorporate in our agreements that are generic to any of our contracts, but I'm not an expert to know if these are there. I see some of them, but I don't see others. So that would be a suggestion. My understanding is that this is a form that is basically the vendor's form as modified somewhat by us. Yeah, so I'm always nervous about vendor forms. And I'm also nervous about paying attorney's fees when we don't need them, pay them. But I think when it comes to a agreement for this period of time, and at this cost, it would be money well spent.
Is this what we've been under before? Is this a contract
We've had no
similar?
contract.
We've had
never
no
had a
con-
contract.
Yeah, Chair Siegel, we've had no contract in the past, and we felt that when we were renewing or increasing the purchase order, we felt that it was in the best interest of the college to, as Nick said, get a procurement vehicle in place to be in alignment with the New Mexico Procurement Code.
Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I would have no problem with you, if you're willing to do this, approving this contract subject to review by legal.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would support that because so if we look under number 6, which is confidentiality, first of all, it's half the contract is about confidentiality, which is really an interesting thing for a vendor agreement. So I would feel a lot better having our counsel look at that. And the lettering's not right out either. So it looks like maybe some provisions were either added from another contract or taken out. It goes A, B, C, D, A, B.
That's the new alphabet.
Oh, that's the new alphabet. Just like new math, we have a new alphabet too that I didn't know about. So that would make me feel a little bit better. My issues with confidentiality is if we could have our attorneys look at it just under the guise of we are a public body. So I don't know what they expect that we're going to keep confidential because we're a public body. It's open to the public now, including their pricing lists, which I think they say are confidential as well, which is part of this and is now part of the public domain. So I would just love it if the council would look at that and make some recommendations if we can really live up to all their confidentiality agreements, knowing the nature of our organization as a public organization. I have a feeling maybe if they've entered into these agreements before, they've been with private sector entities and maybe not public entities.
Do you have any comment on that?
You
don't have to.
I do not have any.
Okay, that's fine. So these prices were just so we could lock in these prices for 5 years.
Lock in the prices or members of the board, to lock in the prices as well as to, again, have a procurement vehicle in place. Some of the terms that we did add were the governing law to be in accordance with the New Mexico Procurement Code, as well as the quantities clause. So we can choose to purchase all,
or less.
some, or none of their products. The SL price sheet that is in the agreement is just a snapshot of their thousands of projects
Yeah,
that they do
it's
have.
not all of them.
It is not all. It is, again, a snapshot. So, yes.
Okay, so we have.
So I move that we approve the Cormark International Distribution Agreement with review and approval by council.
Okay, second,
Madam Chair, I'll second just one comment.
no discussion?
Pardon?
Discussion?
Yeah, okay, well, second for discussion. I just want to say that I think from a procurement standpoint, the college is going in the right direction, and that is to use our buying power to lock in longer-term agreements. I mean, we did it recently for for paper towels. We can do it for other things as well, and we are. And that buying power allows us to get discounts, but also, and what a lot of people don't think about is it eliminates disruption during a period where you can't get products or you don't have an agreement, and that kind of disruption gets our auditors nervous when we don't have backup agreements, and it also takes time from staff to deal with those procurement issues every year, and staff is better employed elsewhere. So I just wanted to add, Madam Chair, that I think the trend that we're seeing here as a board, that we're going towards longer-term agreements that can be canceled as needed, but where we're locking in prices and we're taking advantages of that buying power that we have is a good way to go, and I'm sure that's part of the 1.4 million that was just reported on here this meeting of savings that the college has seen from recent procurement efforts. So one attaboy there for that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, thank you all. Now the financial reports. We went over these, Finance Committee yesterday, when you hit the highlights.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Briefly.
Yeah, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom, yes, we met with the Financial Oversight Committee on Monday, as well as the Board Finance Committee yesterday to review these financial documents. The highlights are we have about $5 million in our bank account in cash at the end of August, and that's about a $683,000 improvement from the prior year. Tuition and fees are up 8% at $4 million, and that's an increase of $307,000. Local appropriations revenue is $117,000, about even with last year. State appropriations are down at 6%, and that is a total of $95,000 less than what we had last year. ING revenues were up in total by 3%, and that's $176,000, totaling $5.8 million at the end of August. If you look at the ING expenses, they are up 14% at $518,000, and that's just because a lot of purchases were made at the beginning of the year. And compensations down slightly by $38,000, and that's 1% in total. If you look at total supplies, expense, equipment, and utilities, it's up $556,000, but again, a lot of that is due to purchases being executed at the beginning of the year. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Any questions about the financial reports? We have a motion for approval.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The Higher Ed Department report of actuals, which is just a form that you have to do, how often?
Once a year,
Once
Madam
a
Chair. In September, we have to submit this to the State Higher Education Department, and it is a report showing our budget adjustment and actuals for the year ended June 2017, fiscal year 2017.
The unaudited version.
And it's unaudited, so there's still some adjustments to be made.
So this just tracks with our financial reports that we receive every month and that we received at the end of the fiscal year.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
So can we have a motion or a question?
A question. So are there any areas where there are discrepancies? In other words, any areas that we way over or under budgeted in the last year?
Yes, so just a few highlights here. If you have the report in front of you, on page 3, you can see that it's Exhibit 1. And what Exhibit 1 shows is instruction in general and other various funds in the college that are known as current funds. And ING revenues came in ahead by about $600,000 on the revenue side. And so that accounts for a lot of the improvement in revenues, where we basically had about a total of $49 million budgeted, and our actuals came in at $49.8 million. Beginning balances started out for ING 1.9 million. And the other large amount is in public service. There's a beginning balance of 1.6 million. And if you look at the expense side, we came in on target in most every area except for the public service fund, which the actuals there were 5.5 million, and the budget amount was 5.2 million. That was the only budget overage in terms of the expenses in that category.
And explain that, and that's because they spent more of their beginning balance.
Yes, public service had again, $1.6 million beginning balance, and so that they had that applying to their fund for use. They had only budgeted a total of 5.2 million, and they ended up using some of that beginning balance for expenses during the year.
Madam Chair, members of the public, that was primarily the statewide small business development center.
That's correct.
And is there any way moving forward that we can avoid that in the budgeting process?
Absolutely. We'll have I think this was really due to just a lapse in communication on what the plan was towards the end of the year, because a lot of those expenses showed up at the very end when I believe the bar was already submitted. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve this higher ed report.
I move approval of the Higher Education Department Report of Actuals.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have the we have the next item, no purchases over 100,000 emergency response plan.
Madam Chair, we did discuss the emergency response plan in the work session this afternoon. It's been reviewed. It's an update to our original plan. It's been updated to recognize the change in campus and multiple campuses now with the Higher Education Center. And so I do want to thank Noe Villarreal especially, but Henry Mignardo and everybody on campus for updating it. It's something that we need to review regularly, and we've worked very closely with Martin Vigil from Santa Fe County on doing that. He's done a lot of training for us, and so
He's the fire chief, or?
He's assistant fire chief.
Assistant fire chief, okay. And just kind of related to that, for the public's knowledge, we are a community resource, and we are actually exploring not only our own emergency response plan if something was to happen on this campus, but also how we could support the community should something happen in the community or in the state, and so that the resources of Santa Fe Community College could be made available to help the state or other communities should that be necessary. So you'll be hearing more about that in the near future. Okay, thank you. Then we have the matters related to policy. The first reading, we discussed the FLA, the employee accessibility and volunteers. We had some tweaks to all of those, and those will come back to us. Yes, they'll be up for final reading and potential changes based upon those discussions at the next regular meeting. Do we have any board reports, discussion, or other business? All right, then our
Madam Chair,
I'm
can I
sorry.
ask for a quick update on the planning process going on at the Higher Education Department?
Well,
Do you have any updates on that? I just haven't heard anything.
Yes,
about it.
because I don't know about the other subcommittees, but the subcommittee I was on, which was the one about governance, was canceled. The second meeting, or the third meeting was canceled, and we are all meeting together on Friday. And so I'll have
more
something to report then, but right now, I don't know any.
And Madam Chair, the group that's looking at financing options did have a conference call, but I believe that's the only meeting.
Nick, are you on that?
Yes, he is. So they had you had a conference call for your financing group for the station. Yeah.
Do you have anything to report about it, or? You could say no.
You can say no.
You must have something good.
Just real briefly, we had a conversation with various schools in the state, and it was a conference call, and some of the issues that were being raised were really in the infancy of this whole process, I think. I'm not so sure that some of the folks on the committee are aware of all of the the accreditation and also the assessment and efficiency requirements that are already in place. And so I tried my best to kind of raise that to the group. And I think they found that valuable. So we're putting together some information for the group just to let them know what's already in place. I've worked with Yash to compile some of the reporting requirements, and it's a laundry list of assessment requirements, IPEDS, HLC accreditation, AQIP, auditing information, and it's, lengthy. So I think it's going to be very helpful to give them some insight on what's being done now so that we can figure out where we need to move forward. I just do hear in the conversation that the state spends too much on higher education. I keep hearing that. I don't know, there's no conversation over what the exact percentage of the state budget should go to higher ed. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of challenging, in terms of what are the expectations. So
Have they, there must be some national standards about, or at least comparisons of states and how much they spend per student in a four-year college and a community college. Has any of that information been discussed at these meetings?
yes, I believe that they've compiled a Dropbox where everybody's kind of compiling information, and so they're looking at other states. They're looking at Georgia, Tennessee, various other states.
All the states that have excelled in education.
So the thing to remember about those figures that people like to use in the public, and especially some of our legislative bodies, is that they claim that per capita or per person we're spending X dollars. But that takes outside of context of, in terms of total dollars per student, it's not high enough. Like it might be enough in terms of percentage of the budget, but that's not always the same thing as how much money we're spending as a whole, because as our population is smaller, our pool is smaller as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more complex, and sort of people tend to use data that sort of meets their political interest, shall we say.
And Madam Chair, if I could add to that, one of my concerns is they don't take into consideration that if you look into data, we are amongst the poorest of the states with the highest unemployment rates, and therefore we have more people who need higher education than other states. We're one of the lower states in terms of any type of post-secondary attainment. And so, if you're starting low and you want to get somewhere high, you're going to have to put more money into it or you're never going to get there. I do want to say that I may be hosting some legislators and members of the LFC fairly soon for both a tour and a long discussion because we've been getting complaints about why is it the two-year colleges numbers keep changing? They keep reporting us new numbers. Well, that's because we have 8-week classes. We have 14-week classes. We have 2-week classes. We have classes starting throughout the semester, and they don't understand. And the four-year schools mostly have semester-long classes. There's some exceptions. I will let you know that New Mexico Highlands University is moving to 8-week classes, which is very highly successful for most students. And I think that's something we should consider doing where we can, because 8-week classes are a success story nationally for both student success, completions, moving through the system faster. That's going to change that data. We can't, numbers do change every month, and they don't understand it. And so I'm hoping by having them out here and visiting some of the other community colleges. I think we're going to be the first one they visit. That's always good and bad since we're right here. But they just don't understand what we do.
That's for sure.
And if I could just end with a positive thought here, that it hasn't been too often, at least in my experience working, having worked at the legislature, at the Capitol, and on education issues in the state, that I've seen all of these different groups having to be in the same room and talk about all the issues affecting them, other than in like legislative committee hearings, where it's still kind of siloed a bit. But I think that that's one good thing that's come together from it, is that everybody is in the same room. They're hearing from the 2 years, the 4 years, the research schools, the schools that are not, and so I think that's healthy.
But Madam Chair, members of the board, but the Secretary of Higher Education does need to make a report to the Legislative Finance Committee by December with some recommendations based upon a memorial that was passed last year. So that's kind of what's driving some things.
And unfortunately, the memorial was a memorial which said that, okay, we're spending in essence, we're spending too much money on higher ed, and looking at how can we change the governance structures to save money. At least that's what my group is looking at, and it's like, well, what is the real problem? It may not be the governance structures, but the memorial is leading us with that, has to be some kind of recommendation.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, it is my understanding, although I've not been at all the presentations, that the outside experts they have brought in have consistently said making these changes does not save money.
Right, yes.
That is, I can confirm that.
Yeah.
Some of the ideas to consolidate certain functions, particularly admin, does not.
Or super boards, a super board over all the independent community colleges. Anyway, so we'll have more maybe after this Friday meeting that we can report, maybe.
Great.
Are
Thank you.
going to that, Nick? Okay.
There's a group of us going. We're having the Governor's Higher Ed Summit on Friday, and so I'm assuming that there's, I don't know if everything relates to this or not. We've not really seen an agenda.
Right. It's Wednesday and we haven't seen the agenda.
Thank you for the updates.
Yeah. Okay, so our board meeting, Board Finance Committee, October 24th, regular board meeting the 25th. The board meeting in November is Monday the 20th, and we have added a December 13th mini board meeting with a meeting with the foundation board. We'll get the exact time, probably starting 3 or 3:30, going till 5:30, having dinner, ending. Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss all these items listed.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn to closed session, discussion of the items listed in the published agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned to closed session. Hey, pick them up. All right, thank you all for coming. Should he be? The finance stuff?